Hello, Spokane. It's Jessica Side.
And I'm Matt Side.
And we are here with EvoReal Talks. And today is the day before Easter.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter. And today is actually our youngest son's birthday.
Happy birthday, Benson.
Happy birthday, Benson.
We love you, buddy. A big 9 today.
Yep, 9 years old. It's hard to believe. I was just watching a video where he was like super, super tiny. And he was singing the song, I'm bad, I know it. And he was a really, very mischievous little toddler. And so it's very funny to have him saying, I'm bad, I know it.
Funny kid.
Yes, indeed. Well, thanks for coming and joining us today, whether you are listening to us on the radio, on a podcast, or maybe you're watching a video. So we're glad to have you. Today we are going to get back into talking about the history of some of the neighborhoods here in Spokane. And we have chosen the Bemis neighborhood to talk about first. So let's talk about where is Bemis neighborhood. So the northern border would be Wellesley. The southern border would actually be two streets, North Foothills Drive on the west side and Illinois on the east side. And then the east and west parameters of that would be Perry and Haven and Market. So Haven kind of turns into Market over there. So that's the kind of the area that we're talking about. And I've got a little bit of history to share with
Surprise!
you and all the people. So
talk to us.
It has unique history because it was kind of evolving between two towns, the town of Spokane Falls and Hilliard, because Hilliard was its own separate entity at that point. It was platted in 1892. It was incorporated 15 years later, and then it was annexed to Spokane in 1924. So it had a long history of having its own municipality, if you will. The Ross Park Street Railway Trolley, that's quite a... which I don't really know.
You're catching the Ross Park today?
I know. The Ross Park Street Railway Trolley isn't something I really don't know about. I mean, obviously, I'm going to do some research and find out more about it. But it connected the downtown Spokane Falls and then, of course, the emerging Bemis neighborhood at Crestline in Illinois. So that's where it would stop.
Kind of like the light rail is in Seattle.
Yeah, kind of like that. And actually, it was because it was the first hydroelectric railway that we had in Spokane.
Wow, look at that.
So it was powered by the Spokane River. Pretty cool. Yeah, did you have a question?
Well...
I'm probably not going to be able to answer it, but go for it.
You'll have to do a little bit more research on this for us because it was a hydroelectric trolley system powered by the river.
Yes.
So, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so it must have had power running through maybe the lines above.
I'm sorry. I'm so 2020 here because most trolleys were electric back then. They weren't like gas powered. They weren't like buses like we have now.
They had there's one
overhead
that went. So I don't have this in my notes, but I did read about.
I know, but in general, I'm saying in big cities they were mostly electric.
There was one after you got off of this trolley, you would get onto another trolley, and it was steam powered. So it was a little bit different. Anyway, so pretty cool. The first school in the area, they graduated. It was a grade school, a high school, and it was the Hilliard District Office. So it was a 3-story building, and it was just northeast of where the Regal Elementary School is now.
Okay. And
in its first graduating class in 1911, they had 5 high school students that they graduated, which is pretty great.
Wow.
So
that would have been a weird prom.
Yeah. So they obviously had to tear down that building when they built the new buildings because they had to separate out the high school and the grade school. They did keep the cupola and bell, and apparently it is salvaged and it's on the site of the old school. We're going to have to go check that out and find it because...
I think I know where that is. It's up more in Hilliard, I think, if I remember correctly.
Well, technically it's in Bemis area, but I don't know. I don't recall ever seeing it, but I think that's very interesting that they had it. Rogers. Rogers is a big part of the Bemis neighborhood. It was constructed in 1932. They had another school site that it burned mostly to the ground. It had a lot of damage in 1931. So they built Rogers the following year, where it is now.
Which is the high school, for those that are not
Yes, the high school, Rogers High School. And it was named after Washington's third governor, who was apparently a big supporter of education. I don't know that for certain because I don't know the guy, but apparently he was.
The books say.
Yeah, that's right. The original building that stands today, it is still there. And it still has its beautiful Art Deco.
You're talking about Rogers High School.
Rogers High School, that beautiful Art Deco, which is indicative of the 1930s, which is, I just think is great. I love that even LC is the same way, which LC is our first high school. You know, they didn't tear down those old buildings. They just did their best to modernize it and then build onto that. So you can still see that wonderful character even now. Another historical thing about the area is Hayes Park. Hayes Park was the Olmsted Brother firm is something that I'm going to do one of these history things on it, because they started so many parks in Spokane, and they looked at the Hayes Park area and decided it would be a great playfield in 1907. So they had identified it as a great place, and it still is today.
Yeah, it's a nice park.
We'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about what's to love. We'll kind of come back to Bemis.
Gonna circle back around.
Yeah, circle back. Here's one of my favorite stories, though, that I read about the area. In the 1950s, Napa Hill and Euclid, which I think they come together in a kind of a V-Y up there, okay?
Okay.
They were all unpaved. And, of course, at the bottom of the hill, still today, the utility company is down there, right? So the utility department would close the hill for the winter time. They not only closed the hill so that the kids could sled down the hill, they provided an employee that kept a fire burning, like that kept stoking wood, so that the kids could warm up at the top of that hill between the two hills. Isn't that just wonderful? So the 1950s, like if you were a kid in the wintertime, you know you are spending like all day sledding on that hill, and you've got a warm place to kind of in between.
It's a totally different world.
I know. Isn't that just? It's just a beautiful kind of
1950s.
1950s, but also that neighborhood. It was we'll talk about it a little bit more, but they're very much active in their community and with their neighbors, and so that's a pretty neat story.
That's cool.
Yeah. We're going to talk about a featured home.
Yeah, we've got a featured home.
Ta-da!
In the midst of coronavirus.
Practically back to normal, folks. No, we're not. It's not really, but...
Practically. All right. Well, we have a featured house today, which I am very excited to talk about.
Yeah.
1640 East Ostrander, which is in the Bemis neighborhood. So that's the area in the Bemis area that this particular property is.
Area, and it's like
it's the area inside of the area inside of the area. It's kind of those nesting dolls, right?
Right, okay.
So it's about 3 blocks north of Empire, between Perry and Crestline,
okay,
is where this house is at. And the reason I'm excited about this is it's not just one of our EvoReal listings, which we're always excited to promote and help people sell their homes, but this happens to be one of our long-term team members, Shale Larson's very own property that he has renovated with much care.
Yes.
I mean, they took it, I say they, because his entire family for the last 6 months has been investing their time and energy in this house. They took it down to the studs. They renovated, like, all new electrical, all new plumbing, insulated it, new flooring, new fixtures. I mean, it's as new as it can be for a house built in the 1900s. I think it's an important
thing to recognize that, because people who I'll call them flippers, people who flip houses get bad reputation for putting poor quality, for kind of putting lipstick on a pig and slapping, some stuff in and having it super low quality. But, when I look at this house and I hear Shale talk about it, the kind of care that they put into it is really wonderful. And somebody is going to get a great house.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this, that Shale did a video on our EvoReal YouTube page that if you're interested in the house, let Shale tell you about his house, because you can tell just watching his video that he really truly cares about the product, and I think that's just indicative of
blood, sweat, and tears.
Who
for
Shale
6 months.
is for sure, is that he cares about it. So anyway, this particular house is a 3-bed, 2-bath home. It's all main floor living, so the laundry and all that stuff is on the main floor. And as I mentioned, it's completely renovated. It's 900 square feet on the main floor there. There is some parking off to the side. And it's just a great, again, look at the pictures, watch the video tour. But it is brand new, top to bottom, paint, flooring, cabinets, countertops, fixtures, everything. So there's not anything besides the studs that are from the 1900s.
And now I'm going to put you on the spot.
Ooh.
Do you remember how much it's going for?
It is selling for $189,900.
I believe that is correct. I thought that might be nice for you all to know how much it's selling for.
I didn't write that down, which is why she's putting me on the spot.
I was a little bit worried that he might forget. He's not great with numbers. He's good at calculating numbers.
I'm good at numbers. I'm just not good at remembering all of the numbers and putting them in the right order sometimes. So if you're interested in that, check it out on our YouTube channel, but you can also contact us at 509-62-HOUSE.
And so YouTube channel is possibly a good, but also our Facebook page.
Facebook page.
Which is just EvoReal, EvoReal.
You can search all homes for sale on our EvoReal.com website. So lots of ways you can get a hold of us and get details on that property.
Perfect.
So, all right. So before we go to break, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today in regard to. I'm really doing that. I'm kind of repeating myself. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, he's doing the nesting doll thing.
Nesting doll day in the world of real estate. So we've talked a little bit about this moment in time with the coronavirus and everything that's going on, kind of holding back the market just a little bit. And in my mind, I'm a visual individual. So in my mind, I picture it in, like my dad worked in the world of dams. And so you'd throw like hydroelectric dams. You'd put down the gates, and so there's water that's coming through, so there's houses coming on the market, but the majority is kind of pent up a little bit. And so my anticipation, as I've mentioned before, is that we head into summer, May and June, is that there's going to be this pent up demand that kind of comes out. And so what I want to talk about today is for those of you that are waiting, because there are a lot of you out there waiting to sell your home, what can you do in the month of April and the first part of May, so that when the time is to pull the trigger, that you're ready to do that. And so we're going to talk about getting your home ready to sell today.
Okay.
And when we sit down and do a marketing presentation, for those of you that have done one with us, we talk about one of the most important things are the 3 Ps of selling your home, which is preparation, pricing, and promotion. And today we're going to talk about preparation.
Great.
So let's go to break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the detailed items of preparation and what you can do in the next month to get your house ready for sale if you're going to be a part of the late spring, early summer real estate market.
Sounds good. Hey everybody, it's Jessica and Matt, and we are back with EvoReal Talks, and we are now going to kind of go into how do you prepare your home, because this is a perfect time. Hey, we're all sitting around in our homes trying to find things to do besides watch Netflix. And so I think it can be a great time to look at your house with a critical eye and start preparing if you're thinking of selling in the next 6 months, even 6, 8 months, even a year.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be in the next month, but while you're at home, like some things that you can be thinking about. So let's just talk about the 3 legs of the stool of preparation, if you will. Repairs, staging, and cleanliness. Those are the big 3. And so let's just dive into them. Let's talk about repairs. When I'm walking through a house with somebody that's thinking of selling and we're doing a walkthrough, when I talk about repairs, one of the things that I say is, listen, if there's small repairs that are not made in your home, then a buyer walking through is inevitably going to ask themselves, what else is wrong with this home?
Right.
And so there's probably not anything else wrong with the home. But the reality is that every little repair that's not completed kind of chips away at the desirability of your home for a buyer. And I think it's important to put yourself in the shoes of a buyer, which is really, really hard as a seller.
Yeah.
Right? You've got this emotional attachment.
Yes.
You feel like that your home is the most amazing and best home ever on the planet.
Well, and just how used to things that we get. So I think about, like, at one point in the other house that we had, I couldn't decide where to put all the pictures. So I had a stack of, like, pictures and, like, very large things in the corner for, like, 2 years. And I didn't even, at a certain point, you stop seeing those. Because you see it every day. And I think the same thing can be true with, a piece of molding that's come off. And you have seen it so often that you forget that that's going to be like stick out like a sore thumb to a new person walking through your home.
I think you also have to forget about what you've been willing to live with for the last period of time. I mean, for ourselves, when we've sold homes that we've lived in, there are certain things that I'll never forget. Our first house, if you're watching her face on the video right now, it's unbelievable. Because she knows exactly what I'm going to say.
You're going to say
that for years we lived with these kind of gross old
8 years,
like old tile countertops that were kind of falling apart, and there was some missing tiles here and there.
And grout was disgusting, but we didn't have a lot of money, so we just lived with it.
Well, and then at some point you get used to it, and you're like, well, that's a huge project that we're not going to tackle right now. And the moment we decided that we were going to move out, I'm like, well, we got to completely replace the kitchen countertops because nobody in the world would ever put up with that. And it just kind of, and it's not just those. When we were at our bowling house, it was the same thing. It was not the same thing, but it was.
You live with things.
There's a crack in the tile in the floor in the kitchen. Well, who cares? It's not that big a deal. But again, you've got to get, as the seller, get out of your head as the person that's been living with XYZ for 10 years and say, oh, okay, well, what are the things that need to get finished, and take this opportunity to either finish those or line up people to do those type of things.
For sure.
So when it comes to repairs, whether that's drywall, wobbly decks, chipping paint, that's a thing that if you want to sell to an FHA or a VA buyer, you can't have chipping paint, and you ought to want to sell to an FHA or VA buyer because that opens up your buyer pool, and the more buyers you have, then the more money you're going to get for that property.
Right.
So that's repairs. So let's talk next about staging.
Okay.
So there are stagers out there, and we highly encourage our clients to reach out to and get consultation and professional staging or staging consultation so that somebody can come through your home and tell you exactly what to do. And you can still do that even right now, even if it's remotely, right? Like you could do a FaceTime video with a staging consultant to say, hey, here's my house. What are some things that I can be thinking about and doing to my home to get it ready? And so that aside, like that would be important. Yeah. But even prior to that, I think you can take some really basic steps to get your house ready for sale when it comes to the staging aspect. So I always recommend thinking Pinterest perfect. We live very much in this visual Pinterest, Instagram type world, and photography is absolutely critical to the positioning and promotion of your home. Yep. And so think about it through that lens. And so the very first thing that you can do is declutter. Yep. Like you can just take a room. What can I get rid of? And it might actually be helpful for you to go to a potterybarn.com or dania.com and look at their stuff.
Yes, just look at their pictures.
Look at their pictures and say, what's not here that's in my house? Because I get it. A bookcase is for books.
Right.
But not when you're staging it for sale.
Right.
Like you might have a few books and then a cute little knickknack on that shelf. And then, so I think that you can begin to learn a little bit about how you can declutter and begin to stage your home, even if you're going to be staying in your home, to get it ready for sale. Love your family. Get rid of all their pictures on the walls.
Okay, I'm not a huge... I don't believe in that 100%. I do think that some people can overdo it on the pictures on their wall. But I know...
If you have a family picture wall, start putting them away.
Yes, that's true.
If you have one of those massive family pictures over your mantle, probably should pack that up and put something that's a little less like distracting for someone. Like that's not what you want someone to see when they come into your home.
What happens is I walk through people's homes, and this is where I differ from some stagers on this, is that they'll say, so do I need to take down all my family pictures, all the personal stuff? I'm like, and again, some stager out there might say that's the most ridiculous thing ever. When I walk through a home with another woman specifically, we're always like, oh, look at that cute little family. Oh, this must be that person's bedroom, or this must be, and there's something about that brings warmth. Now, I do think it can be overdone. So getting an outside opinion is probably a good idea, because what I might think is fine and, don't need to do it. Let's back that up. What you might think is fine, I even might go, yeah, that's probably a little too much. 42 pictures in the hallway is probably more than you need, and because you want
it makes that hallway look small. Like, get those gone.
Yeah, exactly.
So
anyway, that's
so as far as staging, work on Declutter. Think of it from a Pinterest kind of perspective, and visit some of those retail sites that sell furniture and showcase rooms when they do that. So
absolutely.
The last thing is cleanliness, and that seems like it would be kind of intuitive,
right?
But I think that you've got like the difference between straightening up and clean and like a deep clean, get it truly ready to go.
Yes.
And a great example was what I did last weekend in our dining room. Is I literally took every light bulb out of the dining room fixture and cleaned them all with glass cleaner, because it had just dust and dirt and things in the air get on those.
And it's really close to our kitchen. It's like, you can't see it, but it's like right over there. It is, it gets grease on it, so it's really hard to clean.
So those type of things, like, start taking some time on your weekends, or if you're not working right now, to clean some of those things.
Let me throw out a big one that I run into a lot. Again, it's one of those things that we kind of live with. Is I always open and look at someone's shower or bathtub if I'm walking through a home to help somebody list it. But even if I'm walking through a home with a buyer, we want to see, like, what does that look like in there? Because it can be pretty bad. And the grout, like, just recaulk. Like, pull out that old caulk, put in new. Make sure that your shower or your bathtub is as clean as you can get it. That is really important, because it kind of grosses people out. So that's one area that, just because there's a curtain that closes doesn't mean that curtain won't get opened.
Yeah, buyers are going to look at that, because they're about to buy the home, so they want all the pieces of it. So
absolutely.
So those are the three areas that when you're getting ready to sell, whether that's this spring and summer, or it's the fall, or down the road even further, those are the things that you should be focusing on to get your home ready.
Wonderful.
Let's get back into our featured neighborhood, the Venus. What's to love about the Venus?
Well, I think there's a lot of things, and I don't think we're going to be able to get them all in right here. But I think number one is Rogers High School. Yeah, Rogers High School is a wonderful place, and our son played baseball one summer or 2 summers. I can't quite remember.
I think it was 2 summers.
2 summers he played with the Rogers Summer League. And so we got to know a lot of those boys, a wonderful group of boys. And, the kids in general, we actually know quite a few of them. They're incredibly hardworking, and they are incredibly loyal. And I think that I kind of talked about it, right? That feeling of neighborhood, that feeling of community, knowing your neighbors, is, I think, a big hallmark of the area. And I love that. And I think that the Rogers High School kids show that in the way they treat other people. Hayes Park, we talked about that a little bit. It's a fabulous community park, and I found a lot of articles with incredibly strong advocates for the park, like people who care so much about that park, the people who live like directly across from it, just take so much ownership. They've had lots of activities, community activities for the kids. They really make it a relevant part of the community.
It's a good-sized park. Like, it's really long.
Yeah, no,
it runs up against Crestline, but it goes well over toward, like, Perry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty big size, large size. It's a good-sized park.
It's a good-sized park. It is. Andrew Rippon Field. So Andrew Rippon Field is a fantastic sports complex. If you have children at all that have grown up in, Spokane in the last 10, 15 years, you've probably been there and you have watched baseball or softball or soccer, had your pictures taken there. It used to be a junkyard, and they turned that junkyard into Andrew Rippon Field. And I think that's, not only do they have the park there, but they have the community garden. And I love looking at that community garden, a place where people come together and are, growing cucumbers and corn stalks and all kinds of stuff. So it's a lovely place that we have spent many hours.
Many an evening through the summer.
The other thing that they have there that a lot of other parks do not have is they actually have accommodations for young athletes with physical restrictions. And so, it's a place where you can play baseball and be in a wheelchair, which is freaking awesome. I love that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is the Northeast Community Center, which the Northeast Community Center was started in like the 1980s. It was just a big field. It is a community center. It is a senior center. At one point, they realized that there were seniors in the area that wanted to stay in the area, but they couldn't take care of themselves. So they actually have apartments, like with seniors living there. It also now is, they call it a campus because it's such a big area. It's got the library there. They have lots of community services, including medical services. It's a fantastic place that serves that community. So those are some things.
Lots of stuff to love about the Bemis neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. And you pulled some numbers for the
Bemis
neighborhood. Let's talk about that. We're also going to talk about the Spokane as a whole, but let's start with Bemis.
Yeah, so in the Bemis neighborhood, there are currently 71 homes that have sold in the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
The highest was $332,000. The lowest was $65,000. That was probably a bit of a fixer.
Yep.
The median sale price in that area is $176,000. So a very affordable part of Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
And I will just mention that our featured home is just right at that kind of median at $189,000. Right. So great value for a brand new home, newly renovated home like that. There's 7 active properties in that area that range from $274,900 down to $169,900, and again, that median list price is about $235,000, and there's 28 properties pending. So there's a lot more pending in that neighborhood than there are actively for sale.
That's wonderful. So before we move on to the Spokane numbers, let me just talk about the bottom line for Bemis. I just wrote that Bemis is an affordable, diverse neighborhood. It's diverse in its ethnicity and age groups with a feeling of community from its youngest to its oldest.
Oh, that's great. Very well put.
Thanks, babe.
All right, let's talk about the rest of Spokane here toward the end of the program. So right now we have 1,094 active listings, 1,300 pending listings. Let's talk about the last 7 days. 86 properties have sold in the last 7 days. That's compared to 114 for the week prior.
Okay.
And then in the last 30 days, 617 have sold. And a week ago, that would have been 606. And that is pretty standard for this time of year. Okay. I looked up that same number of days a year ago was 620. So this is not an unusually low or high number. It's right on.
That's good. I think that's important for people to know. I mean, we've been, again, tracking these numbers to try and see how much of a change we're seeing, and at least year over year.
It's right on the money. Months of inventory right now, based on the last year's average sales per month, is 1.25. So still really low number of property for sale. Mm-hmm. And then the average the median sold price for the last 7 days has gone up to $312 from last week, which was $298.
Okay.
So really, amidst all the crazy stuff that's going on, the Spokane real estate market is staying strong.
Yep. Especially considering kind of what we're going through. Yeah. Certainly, we've seen houses, deals that have not been able to stay together for various reasons. But on the whole, we're doing all right.
So that is it for us, everyone.
Yeah.
I hope that we were able to cover some interesting things about the Spokane area, Bemis neighborhood, and the numbers.
Yeah.
If you have more questions or you want to reach out to us, please feel free to search us on the social media sites at EvoReal, EvoReal. You can always call us at 509-62-HOUSE. And we will talk with you next week. Thanks again for joining us. Have a happy Saturday. Have a wonderful Easter tomorrow. And happy birthday, Benson.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.